Shut up and sit down.
Hi, welcome back to Middleism Apologetics. Glad you could join me here. I am doing a continuation and a live update here in the sense of we've got a challenge going out, and it is to all preterists. I'll talk about that in a minute. But first of all, I want to deal with something else that I started. And I dealt with William Bell and his teaching of Mello. And I went through that and got a lot of views on that one. But I'm posting up this one because I want to get across to full preterists. Those that are on the fringes, those who are just kind of new coming into full preterism and being taught by William, those in Africa, those in different places who are just now learning about preterism. I got to express this, and basically it's a warning. Now, what do I mean by warning? Well, full preterism. Let's go through here. Full preterism is a heresy, and the reason why it is considered a heresy, and yes, that is the term that the church used for false teaching way back in the beginning, when people were teaching that Christ never physically came, or was just a spirit being, or that he was a man who became God. There's all kinds of what we call false teaching and false doctrines that were brought up. And the church had to, by 325, they formulated a creed and said, this is the basics of the gospel message. This is what makes Christianity Christian and not Hinduism, Muslim, Islam, or any other religion. But this is the tenets. This is what we believe as Christians. And that's all that creed was meant to be, was that statement of faith of what we believe about Christianity. Now, full preterism denies 2 points. The one in there, of course, is about the second coming. They believe it's all future, yet without a shred of historical evidence to prove that. They just say, well, the Bible teaches that, therefore it had to happen. But they cannot show us in history any person who said, yeah, Christ came back in AD 70. There's no such thing. Barnabas himself and John, both living after AD 70, both never talked about a second coming, and you would think it would be the greatest thing in the world to happen if Christ had returned. Any disciple, any Christian would have broadcast that. And you have people like the shepherds of Hermes, you've got Polycarp, you've got Barnabas and the Apostle John, all living after AD 70, Clement, and Ignatius, all these men that lived before and after 70 AD, who were devout Christians who wrote, not one of them ever declared that Jesus came, but they all declared that he was to come. So this in itself is an aberrant teaching. Number two, they denied the bodily resurrection of Christ. And if you did not of Christ, of the saints, they deny that the saints are going to be raised bodily in the resurrection. Now, this is foundational to Christianity. It's something that, of course, again, been taught for 2,000 years in an understanding of Scripture. But they have to dismiss it because they know that there was no physical body resurrection in AD 70. Nobody witnessed any such a thing. But Matthew 27:52 gives us an idea of what a physical bodily resurrection would be. But yet, we have no evidence, no witnesses to say that any such thing took place in AD 70 along with the second coming. So to claim that those things happened, it would be considered heresy. Number three, and this is a very big, huge one, is that when they claim that Christ ascended to heaven, that his body, quote, died again. He shed his body. He no longer is in body form of the flesh and bone body that he was raised in. William Bell and the others now are saying that, yes, he has a spiritual body, but it doesn't have flesh and blood, that it is some kind of spiritual body. And the problem with that, of course, is that any body, and especially according to 1 Corinthians 15, bodies are made of flesh. There's one flesh for humans, there's another flesh for animals and, birds, fish. It's all different. But the idea is that the body that we are raised in is still a body that is governed by flesh and bones. And that is what has been taught and understood for all these years. The promise of our salvation is the redemption of the body from the curse, and a new heaven and earth is us living with God on this new earth in a kingdom that is very physical and that is very good, a restoration of what was lost in the garden, and a return back to the garden of where man was created. These are all doctrines and things that they have denied. These are things that we have held on to as Christians for 2,000 years. And then for somebody to come along and say, no, those are not right, we have to change them, jettison them. The church fathers were all dead wrong. These are the telltale signs of what we call a cult. Mormonism was built on that. An angel appeared to Joseph and told him that the church was all wrong. He's going to restore it, and he's going to restore it to them. And this is exactly the same kind of story that full preterism gives, is that we never understood for 2,000 years. This was all lost. Christ couldn't build his church correctly. And we need preterism to teach us that he came back in 2,000 years ago in AD 70. So this is considered heresy and something to avoid. Now, let me show you a couple things. What I want to bring up first. Let's see. Okay. In my book, you can find this on in Amazon.com, of course. It's under my name. And Full Preterism, the Assault on Orthodoxy. It outlines all of my arguments and proper eschatology from a pre-mill, post-trib view, in opposition to Amill and Post and some of the others. But definitely it's an apologetic against the full preterist heresy, and that's what we deal with. This is the books that some of these Don Preston has written in argument against that. So you want to know what my full thing is. I don't know of any other book that really outlines it correctly as well as this one does. I hate to say it. I've looked everywhere, but there is no real full apologetic. Now, there's many papers that are written, but that hasn't happened yet. So we're dealing with, of course, William Bell and Don Preston and their teachings. And this is what I write against and talk about. And then John Watson. We're going to deal with him in a couple of videos that are coming up. Secondly, you can find on my website, and let's go to the home page. This is an apologetic, of course. It explains eschatology. It goes through the common errors and what the problems and issues are. I deal with a beginner's guide of what eschatology, what we're looking for in these events that are happening. I go through the basic eschatology of the basic views, middleism, dispensational, partial, and full. Then, of course, you would take middleism and dispensationalism as a futurist type of view. We explain those things. We go through briefly. And this is all based on the book. You can find much of the arguments and everything else through it. So we go through on what middleism is, dispensational, partial preterism. We go through full preterism, and we spend a little bit of time on amill and post-mill. Now, going back, I have media sources. I have a YouTube channel. You can click on the link there. And, of course, this is middleism.org that it's based on. And that's where my YouTube channel is, fine, and you can get to. And a blog that I put out when I'm not in school and have more time. I put more up there. But the blog is out there. And then you can find out other things about me. And, of course, there's a blog and YouTube channel links that you can get to it. But here's the heart and the core of it. Now, I have never, to William Bell, Don Preston, Holger, any of these men, have I ever been disrespectful or have I ever torn them down. Their theology is what I've always come against. I've never badmouthed these men in personal attacks. And I will say the only person I've ever gone after is Roy Run, because he's outright has been lied and deliberately misrepresented things that I've said. And he does it deliberately, which I find the other people have enough honesty and integrity to avoid doing that. In fact, Larry Siegel there is quite a nice guy. I have no problem with Michael. Same thing. I don't find him to be a mean person at all. There's nothing mean-spirited about most of these guys. Now, some of them have gotten a little bit mean with others, but I have not disparaged them. So here's the challenge. And again, this is put up there. I've put it out there that Sam and I, and we would find one other person. I've got the video up there on my YouTube channel. We want to sit down and have a roundtable discussion, 3 and 3, maybe 4 moderators to kind of go through the arguments and listen to it, not provide part of the argument, but listen to both sides and come to a conclusion of truth of what's being said. In other words, you'd have one futurist, one preterist, and give us 2 college professors would be great, that we could sit down there and they can listen to the arguments, both sides, listen how we progress and present the things and make corrections and show maybe where we're off, where futurists might be off or whatever that might be done. And to lay the presentation out. And the format I would be looking at is what? First of all, let's deal with the definitions of these words, because that's the first attack against each, is that we change the meaning of words. So let's go through and see what we can do with the first one. Of course, I've dealt with William Bell, was about a mellow, and I showed how mellow does not always mean about to, but it can also mean sure to when it's joined with a future infinitive, and so something to happen as something that is sure to be. But we want to go through these words. Second, then, dealing with the second coming, the timing and the nature, and that of the resurrection, timing and nature, and take our time to develop both of our arguments, to work through them, and really do it. And I'm talking about a full day expression. We have an audience live, recorded, the whole 9 yards, but everybody can actually see, and we can come to a definitive distinctions between the two, and show why something that either one of us says is wrong. What is it rooted in that's wrong? What is the logic that it fails in, or the inconsistency or the incoherence of the position? And so that's our challenge to any 3 preterists we would look for. And I've put these faces in here because that's the challenge going out to any. Maybe, I know J.L. Vaughn would never do it, or John Noy. They're 2 of the guys that actually people kind of reject. But, John Watson, Holger, Steve Baisden, these guys are very adamant in debates and things. And so, hey, let's have a sit-down roundtable discussion and spend a full day actually talking about it, instead of yelling at each other, going back and forth against each other, having the debates that really don't solve anything. And because we're not trying to convince somebody else of our side, we're trying to reason of our positions with one another and show where the common understandings and agreements are, and then show the differences, and then possibly work through the logic of why something is not correct. So any 3 people are open to it. That's what we want to do. All right. So thank you guys for listening. Appreciate it. I will be posting this all over the place, as many places as I can, and putting the links to it. So thanks for listening. Hey, let's set a time. Let's set a date. Let's have the debate. Let's deal it and show it, and really come to terms with it. All right. Thanks for listening again. Bye. And I guess I can stop it.